Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Mu'minin and Mu'minat, Assalamu alaikum. We are here with our 8th program of Muharram al-Haram. We will be starting our program with the recitation of the Holy Quran with Sayyid Abul Fadl Mahdavi, followed by Sayyid Mujtaba Mahdavi.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء نحوا سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تذكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وإذا جاءك الذين يؤمنون بآياتنا فقل سلام عليكم كتب ربكم على نفسه الرحمة أنه من عمل منكم سوءا بجهالة ثم تاب من بعده وأصلح ثم تاب من بعده وأصلح فأنه غفور رحيم. وكذلك نفصل الآيات ولتستبين سبيل المجرمين. وإذا جاءك الذين يؤمنون بآياتنا فقل سلام عليكم سلام عليكم وإذا جاءك الذين يؤمنون بآياتنا فقل سلام عليكم كتب ربكم على نفسه الرحمة كتب ربكم على نفسه الرحمة كتب ربكم على نفسه الرحمة أنه من عمل منكم سوءا بجهالة ثم تاب من بعده وأصلح فأنه غفور رحيم. وكذلك نفصل الآيات وكذلك نفصل الآيات وكذلك نفصل الآيات ولتستبين سبيل المجرمين. قل إني نهيت أن أعبد الذين تدعون من دون الله قل لا أتبع أهواءكم قل لا أتبع أهواءكم قد ضللت إذا وما أنا من المهتدين. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعجل فرجه.
This, I would like to invite Sayyid Bilal Rizvi, the member, to start our English program.
سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الصادقين والذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهر تطهيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على صاحب الدعوة النبوية والصولة الحيدرية والإسمة الفاطمية والحلم الحسنية والشجاعة الحسينية والإبادة السجادية والمآثر الباقرية والآثار الجعفرية والعلوم الكاذمية والحجج الردبية والجود الثقبية والنقابة النكبية والهيبة العسكرية والغيبة الإلهية. اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه. أما بعد، فقد قال الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والفجر وليال عشر والشفع والوتر والليل إذا يسر هل في ذلك قسم لذي هجر. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات الإماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد وفرعون ذي الأوتاد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. We continue our series of discussions regarding Surah Al-Fajr and the movement of Imam al-Hussein. We examined up to this point roughly 15 ayat of this chapter and how it relates towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. Yesterday we had the discussion regarding what is dhikrullah and what does the verse in its reality mean when it says inna rabbaka la bil mirsad, that indeed your Lord, he remains vigilant over you. And through that we had many discussions about the remembrance of Allah, the impact of the remembrance of Allah, and how the remembrance of Allah manifests itself in the dhikr of Sayyid al-Shuhada and in the dhikr of Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. You find the next two verses are verse number 15 and 16, which speak about the tests that mankind is given. That Allah, he says that oftentimes when Allah gives man something, he says, Allah has honored me. And when Allah takes away something, people, they say Allah has humiliated him. But Allah is going to show oftentimes something which you outwardly consider a blessing is a test for you, and something which he takes away is a blessing for you. You see, the reality of this is that the believer, his life is faced with trials and tribulation. We have many traditions that state that the more iman and belief a person has, the more challenges he will be faced with. That is because the way the world works, there are individuals who go against the system of morality. And we find the believer is somebody who is bound by the system of morals. But without a doubt, you find the most difficult of challenges and tests occur within the time period of the ghaiba of the 12th Imam and the occultation of the 12th Imam. For it is that time period that the hadith they state that this is that time when oftentimes someone will wake up in the morning with iman and belief, and by the time he sleeps, he won't have iman and belief. So the reality is that we need to understand the trial of the occultation of the Imam and really how we can use the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada in the time period of the occultation. You see within this chapter, you find there are many aspects of this chapter, as I said, which speak about the movement of Imam al-Hussein. But a key aspect of the movement of Imam al-Hussein is that the movement of Imam al-Hussein has a link with the movement of Imam Sahib al-Zaman Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu al-Sharif. And this is manifest within this chapter. When the Quran says, Wal Fajr on night 1 or night 2, I examine the different interpretations of Fajr within this chapter. One of those interpretations was that Fajr is Imam Sahib al-Zaman. But another interpretation is that when it says Fajr and by the daybreak and the coming of light, it is a reference to the movement of Sayyid al-Shuhada. So right off the bat, from the first verse of this chapter, by this common interpretation, we come to see that there is a link between Sayyid al-Shuhada and Imam al-Zaman. But no, when the last verse, it says, Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutma'inna, O contented soul. Yes, the hadith say over here that this is for Sayyid al-Shuhada, but you find it at the level, it applies to all of the A'imma. So the point being is that these days of Muharram are amongst Ayyamullah. These are those days where we seek to connect with Allah. These are those days where we bring our broken hearts to the majlis of Hussein. But this majlis of Hussein is a movement. And this majlis of Hussein is a safar and a journey. You see, whenever you have a journey, correct? A journey has a beginning point and it has an end point. That what is the beginning of this journey and what is the end of this journey? The beginning of this journey is the revival of Hussein in Karbala and the revival of Islam by Hussein in Karbala. And the end of this journey is the return and the duhur of Imam Sahib al-Zaman. You see, using this idea, I'll examine different aspects about this journey tonight, from the event of Karbala to the return of Imam Sahib al-Zaman. You see, Karbala is a movement which has many dimensions, that oftentimes one of the mistakes that we make is that we limit Karbala and we say Karbala is this and Karbala is that. The reality is that that may just be an aspect of Karbala. The true reality of Karbala is a reality which started with Adam and it continued towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. That when Adam, he goes against Shaitan, and Shaitan, he doesn't prostrate before Adam. And he says, oh Allah, if I'm not allowed to prostrate here, if I am exempted from prostrating here, then I will do sujood, the likes of which that no one has ever seen. But Allah, he didn't want worship out of habit. He said, oh Shaitan, prostrate before Adam. But you find Shaitan, he opposed Adam. After that, you find Nuh, he comes. The next leg of this journey was the leg of Nuh, that one side Nuh was there, and on the other side, anyone who engaged in kufr was drowned. After that, on one side, you had Ibrahim, on the other side, you had Nimrud, you had Musa and Fir'aun, you had Rasulullah and Abu Sufyan. But you find in this journey of Haqq, this journey which will manifest itself in the return of the Imam, the question arises, is that why is Karbala such a unique event? Is that Musa, he stood up against Fir'aun, Ibrahim against Nimrud. But what makes Karbala so clear? You see, Karbala is that point in human history that after Karbala, the side of Haqq and the side of Batil, the side of truth and the side of falsehood, they would never be clear as they were in Karbala. That's why there was a famous scholar from the subcontinent, Shah Ahmad Nurani. And he wasn't a Shia scholar. They said to him that are you Shia or are you Sunni? He says, oh man, after Karbala, there's only two sides. Either you are on the side of Hussein or you are against the side of Hussein. And he says, I have the pleasure of saying that I am on the side of Hussein. You see, Sayyid al-Shuhada's movement was such a movement that if we are going to have a divine system, a system that will bring equity and justice upon the earth, after the earth was filled with oppression and inequity, you find the movement of Hussein will be that movement which is utilized by Imam al-Zaman. That it's stated in many of the hadith, for example, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Imam al-Sadiq says that the slogan of the movement of Imam al-Zaman would be Ya latharat al-Hussein, that oh, a vengeance for the blood of Hussein. How many traditions do we have that say similar sentiments? For example, don't we say in Dua al-Nudba that that we say in Dua al-Nudba, what do we say? We say Aina talibu bidam al-maqtul bi Karbala. That where is the one who will avenge the blood of the one that was at Karbala, that we say this about the reality of Imam al-Zaman. And you find, what further evidence can I give that according to the famous hadith, that when the Imam he returns, that he will stand in front of the Kaaba and he'll say, Ana al-Imam al-Qa'im. He'll say, O people of the world, I am that Imam who will uprise. Then he'll say, Ala ya ahl al-alam, ana samsam al-muntaqim. O people of the world, I am the one who is here to take revenge. Then he'll say, Ala ya ahl al-alam, inna jaddi al-Husayn qataluhu atshanan. He'll say, O people of the world, my grandfather Hussein was killed thirsty. He'll say, Ala ya ahl al-alam, inna jaddi al-Husayn tarahuhu uryanan. That, O people of the world, when they killed my grandfather Hussein, they didn't even leave the clothes upon his body. You find the Imam in this manner. When he addresses the people of the world, he addresses them through his grandfather Sayyid al-Shuhada. And he reminds them through his grandfather Hussein. You see this journey from the moment of Sayyid al-Shuhada to the return of the Imam is such a journey which requires the development of the soul, because journeys are of different types. For example, you can have a journey in time, a safaru zamani, that we say that 1400 years have roughly passed from Karbala until today. And we say in time, this is that movement, but at the same time, we recognize that the remembrance of Hussein, the more time it passes, the more enlivened it becomes. You see, this is one type of journey. But no, another type of journey man can make is that journey in thought, in that journey of ma'rifah, and that journey of understanding. You see, sometimes somebody, he goes from the age of 20 to 30, but there is no journey and understanding of God, understanding of Hussein, understanding of the system of the world. And sometimes a person in 1 year, he's able to make a 10-year journey with an understanding. But the person who is truly a human being is that person who is constantly progressing. It's that person who's constantly struggling and striving to become better. Otherwise, the one who stops striving is that person who is considered dead according to the text of the Quran. You see, life doesn't just mean the pumping of the heart or the functioning of the brain or the body. But no, the Quran, it speaks about certain individuals. When it speaks of them, it says their hearts are like rocks, but no, rather they are harder, because certain rocks, you find water is able to come out of it via streams. But no, Amir al-Mu'mineen, in a different tradition, he says that dead are of two types. One is the one who is living according to you, and the one who is dead. What this goes to show is that the one who is seeking to understand is the person who in the truest sense of the word is hayy, and in the truest sense of the word is somebody who is alive. And there are many aspects of making this journey. from Karbala to the Duhur of the Imam. You see, one aspect of this journey is to remove ourselves away from dhulm and oppression. You see, oppression is of different types. You can have oppression in your belief. For example, when Luqman, he speaks to his son, he says, Ya bunayya la tushrik billah, inna shirka la dhulmun adim. He says, oh my son, do not do shirk, do not ascribe partners to Allah, for this is a form of great oppression. So we see over here that dhulm is a type. We see that even dhulm can occur in beliefs. But no, another type of dhulm and oppression is when a person, he wrongs his soul, that he doesn't live up to his maximum potential. As Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Dalamtu nafsi, I've wronged the self of mine. And the third type of dhulm is when you do wrong towards others. You see, Sayyid al-Shuhada, when we examine the movement of Hussein, and I made this point before, is that everyone in the movement of Hussein, he represents an aspect in this journey. You see, I know that this year when Muharram is via virtual means and we're lecturing via Zooms, it's hard for you to pay attention to the speakers and connect with the speakers. And it's just as hard for us to connect with the audience as well when you don't have the audience sitting in front of you. When we're speaking into a screen. There is a natural environment and connection that is built when you're sitting on the farsh-e-azah. But the reason that you keep making that effort, and the reason we keep making this effort, is nothing but the ishq and the love of Aba Abdullah. It is this ishq which drives us forward. And how do we understand this ishq? We understand it at one level from the Ansar of Sayyid al-Shuhada. You see, each of them, they represented a different sifa and attribute in the ishq of Hussein. That when you look at Habib ibn Madahir, what does Habib represent? Habib, he represents understanding in religion. That Hussein ibn Ali, Imam al-Hussein, he says, Min al-Hussein ibn Ali ila rajul al-faqih. When he writes to Habib, he says, this letter is from Hussein to Habib, the one who has a thorough understanding in religion. But no, when you look at Abbas, correct? Tonight is the night of the Masaib of Abbas. That what does Aba Fadl Abbas represent? You see, Abbas is that one shaheed. That if I said Abbas only represents one quality, I would do an injustice to Aba Fadl Abbas. But no, the peak of loyalty and wafa is Aba Fadl Abbas. That his entire life, Aba Fadl Abbas, he wouldn't say Akhi Hussein. He wouldn't say, oh, my brother Hussein. He would always say, Sayyidi wa Mawlai Hussein. That, oh, my master Hussein. That even on the day of Ashura, correct? When Aba Fadl Abbas, he gets towards the Furat. When he reaches the Furat, Aba Fadl Abbas, what does he do? He takes the water, he throws the water away, and he begins to recite lines of poetry. Abbas, he begins to say, Ya nafsu min ba'd al-Husayn huni, wa ba'dahu la kunti aw takuni. Hada al-Husayn warid al-manuni, wa tashrabina barid al-ma'ini. Abbas, he says, O soul, after Hussein, neither were you nor will you be anything. Hussein is over here about to drink from the water of death, and you want to drink this water over here. That you see, what would have stopped Aba Fadl Abbas from drinking from the water at that moment? Nothing. But it was Abbas who recognized that if my Imam is in pain, then I am in pain at this moment. You see, the Shia of the Imam are the ones who make dua for the heart of their Imam. You see, Imam Sahib al-Zaman is the one who feels the pain of his followers more than they feel. Oftentimes when we open the news and we hear about a bomb blast or we hear about somebody being killed who's innocent, doesn't it hurt our hearts? Don't we feel for those individuals? But now the Imam is the one who feels more pain than anyone else for his followers. It's stated one day that in Masjid al-Sahla and Alim, he sees the Imam of the time. He says, I saw Sahib al-Zaman in Masjid al-Sahla, and may Allah grant you the ziyarah of Masjid al-Sahla, that place which is said to be the administrative quarters of the Imam. It's stated that the Imam was over there. He would pray that, oh Allah, if the hearts of my Shia were united, I would return. And I prayed for their pain and their sorrow, O Allah. You see, the reality of the Imam is a vigilant reality. The reality and the occultation of the Imam is like the occultation of Yusuf, as it's mentioned in the Hadith. That when the brothers of Yusuf, after they had thrown Yusuf in the well, and Yusuf, he becomes the economic minister of Egypt, a point it comes when there was a famine. The brothers of Yusuf, they went towards the court of Yusuf. When they went towards the court of Yusuf, Yusuf recognized it was them, but they didn't recognize it was Yusuf. At the end of the story, when Yusuf, he says, this is who I am, they say, are you really Yusuf? You find that the hadith, they state that the reality of the occultation of the Imam is like the ghaiba of Yusuf. That the brothers, they didn't recognize Yusuf, Yusuf recognized the brothers. Imam is Zaman, we may not recognize him, but the Imam, he recognizes us. Now, I'll give you a proof from history. It's stated one day, there was the famous scholar by the name of Muqaddas al-Arbili. Muqaddas al-Arbili. You find this scholar was that individual who was from amongst the greatest of scholars in the school of Ahlul Bayt. One day, he goes from Ardabil towards Karbala. And when he's going from Ardabil towards Karbala, Muqaddas, he didn't have a horse with him. So he borrowed a horse from somebody. As he was going, a person comes to Muqaddas al-Arbili. He says, can you take this letter with you towards Karbala? Muqaddas, he says to himself, that I only have permission to ride the horse. The owner didn't give me permission to take the letter as well, because this was not within our agreement. So Muqaddas al-Arbili, he doesn't deny that man. He takes the letter, but he gets off the horse. He would walk next to the horse on the way towards Karbala. It's stated as Muqaddas al-Arbili was going towards Karbala, he meets a man. That man says, where are you from? He says, I'm from Ardabil. The man says, very well, where are you going? He says, I'm going to Karbala. That man says, come upon my horse, I'll take you to Karbala. As they're going, he begins to speak to Muqaddas. He says that there is somebody in this town by the name of Sheikh Ahmad. The name of Muqaddas al-Arbili was Ahmad. Muqaddas al-Arbili says, yes, I know Sheikh Ahmad. That man says, I hear that they call him Muqaddas, the sanctified. Muqaddas al-Arbili, he puts his head down. He says, I hear he's not as pure as people say they are. That he has many sins, he has many wrongdoings. That man turns around. He says to him that if Muqaddas al-Arbili wasn't pure, he wouldn't be sitting on the horse with the Imam of his time. You see, these are those individuals. There have been people in history that they spent their life making dua for the Imam. They spent their life reflecting on the Imam, and their connection with the Imam is seen. Whether it's Imam al-Zaman, whether it is them living in the Holy Lands. You know, it's stated that one day that Shaheed Baqir al-Sadr, within his dream, he sees Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, oh Baqir al-Sadr, that why have you not come to my shrine for 3 days? That Baqir al-Sadr, when he was in Najaf, he would go towards the shrine of Amir al-Mu'mineen every day. So you find there are individuals like this, and there are individuals who have this level of connection with the Imam of their time. But these are those individuals who understand the reality of the Imam. And one aspect of understanding the reality of Imam al-Zaman is to understand Hussein. For to understand Imam al-Hussein is to understand the 12th Imam, and to understand the 12th Imam is to understand Imam al-Hussein. You see, within our hadith, we have 300 hadith. 180 of them from Rasulullah, that when they describe Imam al-Zaman, they describe Imam al-Zaman through Imam al-Hussein. You know, it's stated that Imam al-Hussein on Shab-e Ashura, on the night of Tasu'a, as it's called in Arabic, the night before the day of Ashura, it's stated that Imam al-Hussein, he says that my grandfather used to say, the one who has supported Hussein has supported I, Rasulullah, and he has supported the 12th of Ali Muhammad. That you see, there are two Imams out of all of the Imams, that each Imam would show a particular respect towards them. One was Sayyid al-Shuhada, the other was the 12th Imam. You know, when Imam al-Rida would be in the Abbasid courts, the Abbasids had a habit that they heard that there would be a Mahdi who would rise. So they began to name each of their children Mahdi. You see, one of those who did this was Ma'mun. When Ma'mun would call his son Mahdi and he would say his name, Imam al-Rida would stand up for him and he would put his hand upon his head in respect. They said, "Oh Imam al-Rida, why are you doing this?" Imam al-Rida says, "I am not showing respect to this man, but I am showing respect to that Mahdi who will be from my lineage. This Mahdi is the one whom his neighbors they hit. This is the one who his friends they hit. But our Mahdi is the one who will bring justice upon the earth." You see, Imam al-Rida, he would show this type of respect towards the 12th Imam. Imam al-Sadiq would say that if I was alive in the time period of Al-Qa'im, I would spend my life being the servant of Al-Qa'im. In the same way, you find each of these A'imma, they show their respect towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. They think of Abu Abdullah. That when Imam al-Rida, after he was poisoned, and Imam al-Rida was upon his deathbed, you find Imam al-Rida, he says that remove the mattress from under me. They say, "Oh Imam al-Rida, your body is going in pain at this moment." Imam al-Rida says that for a moment, I want to feel the pain of my grandfather Hussein. You see, each of these Imams, they would think of their grandfather Hussein and they would think of their uncle Abbas. Then you know, Imam Zainul Abidin would say, "Inna ammi al-Abbas nafidul basira." That our uncle Abbas, sorry, the tradition is of Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, not of Imam Zainul Abidin. Imam al-Baqir would say that indeed my uncle Abbas had a piercing insight, that when others, they didn't know what was right and wrong, our uncle Abbas is the one who understood the reality and the haqaiq. That's why when they said to Amir al-Mu'mineen, "Ya Ali, who is greater, Salman or your son Abbas?" Amir al-Mu'mineen said that if my son Abbas looked at the people of the world, he could elevate them into Salman. That this is the status of Aba Fadl Abbas. That who is Abbas? You see, in history, there were 124,000 prophets, the Anbiya. You find each of them had their successors, the Awsiya. But if in a history anyone has the right to be called Misbahul Huda, the lamp of guidance, that right, it belongs to Hussein. But you know, every lamp, every light, it has its rays which reflect the reality of that light. The sun has its rays. You find the rays which reflect the lamp of guidance or the martyrs in Karbala. That each of these shohada, they represent the reality of Hussein. But you find in the way the sun has its ultimate reflection in the moon, there is one martyr who was the ultimate reflection of Hussein, and that martyr was Aba Fadl Abbas. You see, from amongst all of the shohada, there's something very unique about Aba Fadl Abbas. Even when you go towards Karbala, you find all of the companions are buried together. Habib ibn Madahir, he's buried by them in the shrine of Imam al-Hussein. But it's only Aba Fadl Abbas that when you go to the shrine of the Imam al-Hussein and you go towards Karbala, On one side, you see the haram of Abbas. On the other side, you see the haram of the Imam. And people, they begin to think that what should we do at this moment? That should we go to Aba Abdullah first or should we go to Aba Fadl Abbas first? Here the ulama, they say that before you go to Hussein, you go to Abbas and you get permission from Aba Fadl Abbas. And you know what you recite when you go to Aba Fadl Abbas? You say, Ya Kashif al-Karb an wajh al-Hussein, Ikshif al-Karb anni wa an hadih al-Ummah. You say, oh, the one who removed difficulty from the face of Hussein, remove difficulties away from me and this Ummah. You see, Abbas is that one that each member of Ahlul Bayt would look towards Abbas. That the hope of Zainab was Abbas. The hope of Kulthum was Abbas. The one who had the respect of the Imam was Abbas. You see, one of the titles of Aba Fadl Abbas is Dahrul Imama wal Wilaya. That Abbas is the backbone of Imama and Wilaya. You see in every language, whether Urdu or Persian or Arabic or English, the back, it represents the strength of an individual. The back, it represents support towards that individual. There was only one shaheed on the day of Ashura, that when he fell towards the ground, Sayyid al-Shuhada said, Al-an inkasara dahri, now my back has been broken. That only shaheed is Abbas. You see the hope of Zainab Abbas, the hope of Kulthum Abbas, the supporter of Imamat Abbas, the one whom Imam Zainul Abidin would call Uncle Abbas. You know, in Riyadh al-Quds, it's written that on the 13th of Muharram, when Imam Zainul Abidin, he went to bury the body of his uncle, he goes to the body of Aba Fadl Abbas. He says, oh, my uncle Abbas, if you were here, then my aunts wouldn't be taken through the marketplace. If you were here, their hijabs wouldn't have been taken. That this is Aba Fadl Abbas. You know, Abbas was the dua of Amir al-Mu'mineen. That Amir al-Mu'mineen, he marries al-Banin in the year 15 after Hijrah. That he goes to Aqil in the mosque and he says, oh Aqil, I want to have a son who is born to a lady that comes from a tribe of warriors. Aqil says, come back in a month. When Amir al-Mu'mineen returns, he says that there is a lady, her name is Fatima bint Hizam al-Kilabiyah. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he marries this lady, but it is 11 years later that Abbas is born. You know, when the mother of Abbas was coming to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen, she sat at the doorsteps and she began to cry before entering. Sayyida Zainab, she comes out. She says, oh lady, why are you crying? She says, how can I enter that house where your mother Fatima used to be in that house? You see, when al-Banin was in the house of Ali and Fatima, every time the Imam would call her Fatima because that's what her name was, she would see tears coming from the eyes of Ali bin Abi Talib. One day she says, oh Ali, every time you say the name Fatima, I see pain in your heart. I don't know what the Imam would remember. Maybe he would remember that burning door in Medina, that between the door and the wall was Zahra. al-Banin, she says, that from now on, call me al-Banin, the mother of the sons, don't call me Fatima. You see, that day it came when Abbas was born. When Abbas was born, Amir al-Mu'mineen had a tradition. Each of his children, he would kiss them on the forehead. When Imam al-Hassan was born, he kissed Imam al-Hassan on the forehead. And when Imam al-Hussein was born, he kissed Imam al-Hussein on the forehead. Muhammad al-Hanafiya the same way. But when Abbas was born, you know what Amir al-Mu'mineen does? He takes the arm of Abbas and he kisses the arm of Abbas. al-Banin, she begins to cry. She says, oh my master, Why is it that you only kiss the arm of Abbas? Is it because Abbas is the son of a slave, Baneen? Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Baneen, this isn't the reason. He says, Baneen, but rather, these are those arms that'll be cut on the day of Ashura for Hussein. You see, Janab Zahra would call Abbas her son. In history, is this recorded? No. But you find it stated that one day there was an alim, he goes towards Karbala. As he was reciting the ziyarah of Abbas, he said, Assalamu alayka yabna Fatima Zahra. But he said, Salam upon you, the son of Fatima. But he says that after that I began to think. I realized that Abbas is the son of Baneen. So I took that line back. He says that night, I saw Janab Zahra. Zahra said towards me that Abbas is my son, call Abbas my son. You see, this is the status of Abbas. The day of Ashura it came, I left the Messiah. Ali Akbar is Shaheed, Abbas he waits. Qasim is martyred, Abbas he waits. You find the companions are martyred, Abbas he waits. Appointed comes, Aba Fadl Abbas. He says, oh my master, can you give me permission to go to the battlefield? Imam al-Hussein, he says, Abbas, anta sahibu liwa'iya Abbas. Oh Abbas, you are the flag bearer of my army. You are the alamdar of my army, oh Abbas. The Maqtal it says, فَنَّذَرَ إِلَى يَمِينِ وَالشِّمَالِ. That Abbas, he looks to the right, he looks to the left. He says, oh my master, which army is left that I am the flag bearer of that army? Abbas, he returns towards the tent, and you know the Masa'ib. It's stated that the 3.5-year-old daughter of Imam al-Hussein, she says, oh my uncle, if only we had water. Aba Fadl Abbas, he goes towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. The Imam gives permission for Abbas to bring water. Aba Fadl Abbas, he goes towards the Furat. When he goes towards the Furat, Aba Fadl Abbas, he lifts the water. You know, I don't know what Abbas he saw within the water, but one poet would say that perhaps he saw the reflection of Sakina within that water. Abbas, he throws the water away. He grabs water, he places it within the water bag, within the mushk. That moment it comes. Abbas is returning towards the tent. As Abbas is returning towards the tents, they cut the right arm of Aba Fadl Abbas. Abbas, he moves the flag to his left arm. They cut the left arm of Abbas. He grabs the water bag by his teeth. But you know what arrow was next? The next arrow was the arrow of Hurmala. He fires into the bag of Abbas. The water begins to pour. Abbas, now he doesn't face the tent. Abbas, he faces the Maqtal. As Abbas, he faces the Maqtal, one man strikes the head of Abbas. But the moment it comes, one arrow is fired, the right eye of Abbas. There was an alim in Karbala. He saw a reciter reciting this Masa'ib. The reciter said an arrow went into the right eye of Abbas. That alim, he said, that don't recite this Masa'ib, you don't know if it's authentic. He says that night, I saw a man in my dream. He didn't have any arms. I knew it was Abbas. He said to me, oh Yahya Yatrabi, why did you stop my reciter? The scholar, he says that I didn't know if the Messiah was authentic. Aba Fadl Abbas, he says that yes, an arrow went into my eye, it was authentic. But whenever something goes into your eyes, you use your hands to take it out. I didn't have any arms, so I would look to the right, I would look to the left, but one point it came, I put the arrow in between my knees. Using my knees, I pulled that arrow out of my eye. That this is the Masa'ib of Abbas. He calls out towards Sayyid al-Shuhada. As Imam al-Hussein is coming, Hamid bin Muslim, he says, I would see Hussein pick something up, hold it to his chest, And then I would see Hussein pick something else up and hold it to his chest. He says, I wanted to see what it was. He says, when I got closer, I saw that it was two cut arms. It was the arms of Abbas, which Hussein would hold towards his chest. You see, I've left the musibah. You find the mother of Abbas wasn't in Karbala. The mother of Abbas was in Medina. You know, when the caravan of Ahlul Bayt that returns to Medina, Imam Zainul Abidin says, Oh Bashir, your father used to recite poetry. Do you recite poetry? Bashir, he says, yes, I do. The Imam says, go and tell the people of Medina what has happened. Bashir, he says, Ala ya ahlal yatrib la muqama lakum biha. قتل الحسين فأدموا مدراره. He says, oh people of Yathrib, this isn't a place worth living anymore. Hussein has been killed and the tears they fall. It's stated when Bashir, he said this, Ummul Baneen heard the call of Bashir. Ummul Baneen, she takes Fadl, the son of Abbas. She goes towards Bashir. She says, oh Bashir, which Hussein was killed? Bashir says, oh Bibi, the son of Ali Hussein, the son of Fatima Hussein. Baneen says, oh Bashir, I don't believe you. How is it that my Abbas was there and Hussein was killed? Bashir says, Abbas was killed first and then Hussein was killed. Baneen says, no Bashir, you don't know my Abbas. How could anyone kill my Abbas? He was such a warrior. Bashir says, oh Bibi, they struck Abbas upon the head and he fell towards the ground. Baneen says, oh Bashir, how is it that Abbas, he couldn't stop a sword? Bashir says, oh Baneen, Abbas's arms were cut, he couldn't stop it. Baneen, she falls to the floor of Medina. She says, oh Bashir, answer one question. Whenever anyone falls, they use their arms to break their fall. My Abbas's arms were cut. Was it the chest of Abbas or was it the face of Abbas which hit the plains of Karbala? Ya Allah, we ask through the right of the Masa'ib of Abbas, that what are the Masa'ib of Abbas? You know, there was a famous scholar by the name of Sayyid Mahdi Bahar al-Ulum. And one point in history, water came into the shrine of Abbas. So they said to Sayyid Mahdi, can you help with the reconstruction? As Sayyid Mahdi Bahar al-Ulum was in the shrine of Aba Fadl Abbas, the man, he comes up to Sayyid Bahar al-Ulum. He says, oh Sayyid, can I ask you one question? Sayyid Bahar al-Ulum says, what is that question? He says, oh Sayyid, you would always say that Abbas was a tall individual, but why is it that the grave of Abbas is so small? Sayyid Bahar al-Ulum, he takes off his turban, he begins to cry. He says, oh man, I wish you didn't ask me this question. He says, Abbas is that shaheed, that not only did they cut the arms and the neck of Abbas, but they would hit the body of Abbas until the body of Abbas was broken to pieces. We say, oh Allah, through the right of Babul Hawaij, accept our ibadat. Oh Allah, allow this azah of ours to gladden the heart of Fatima Zahra. Ya Allah, grant us the intercession of Fatima Zahra. Ya Allah, increase our love for Fatima Zahra. Ya Allah, raise us on the day of judgment with Fatima Zahra. And Ya Allah, allow us to see the reappearance of the son of Zahra. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم.
Jazakallah Maulana Sahab. With this, we will take a 40-minute break for Namaz Maghriban. We will be right back around 8:40 p.m. for our Urdu Majlis, inshallah.